109 years old.
So now you're smarter than Elon Musk?
79 people.
What?
From 210 years old. I haven't met any of them. And if I did, I would bless them. I would worship the ground they walk on.
I'm smart enough to understand that when a bunch of 19-year-old coders actually come to me and say that there are more people on Social Security payrolls than there are people in the United States of America, I'm smart enough to go, this seems like a false interpretation of the data. That's just a little bit of critical thinking. So clearly, I guess in this instance, and just this instance alone, the answer is yes. That's it. When someone talks about a person, for example, getting Social Security payments that literally from a time when Social Security as a concept didn't exist, the idea that someone has been getting paid Social Security payments for a longer period of time than the existence of Social Security means that I am looking at the data falsely. I am interpreting the data incorrectly. Yes, I know it's the programming language. I haven't gotten there yet. The 160-plus-year-old stuff is because the programming language they used, COBOL, which is super old apparently, the defaults to January 1st, 1950 or something if a date is missing. Yes. If there's incomplete data on the dates, it automatically assumes that it's 1875 or something, okay? Or 1850 or something. Yes, I know. I read the Wired article as well.
And there's one person that's 360 years old. That's just that. And then, where's the money being spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental, sounds like an environmental study. It's most, I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but they, I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions. $10 million for circumcisions in another country. $9.7 million for UC Berkeley to develop a cohort of Cambodian youth with enterprise-driven skills. In other words, let's teach them something about enterprise. What about our people? Can we teach them about enterprise? $2.3 million for strengthening independent voices in Cambodia. $32 million to the Prague Civil Society Center, which is a very liberal group of people. Wonder how much of that money
These
came
guys
back
are
to the
so,
people
he's so dumb.
$14 million for improving public.
I wonder what the reasons for why we have these civil society organizations that we are funding. Much to consider here. Maybe because we want to make Serbia woke, I think.
The money, they're one of the highest taxing countries in the world.
I wonder if we'll talk about Israel at all in this process, by the way, in terms of expenditures.
I have a lot of respect for India. I have a lot of respect for the Prime Minister. He just left, as you know, 2 days ago. But we're giving $21 million for voter turnout. It's voter turnout in India. What about, like, voter turnout here? Oh, we've done that, I guess. We did 500 million, didn't we? It's called the lockboxes. By the way, I could read this all day long. I could go on all day long, and you'll see hundreds of billions of dollars, and we're doing it. But when I saw the Social Security numbers, I said, wow, that's really something. So we have, let's just go above 100 years old. We have millions and millions of people over 100 years old. Everybody knows that's not so. We have a very corrupt country, and it's a sad thing to say, but we're figuring it out. Now, the good thing about Social Security and what I read is if you take all of those numbers off, because they're obviously fraudulent or incompetent, but if you take all of those millions of people off Social Security, all of a sudden we have a very powerful Social Security with people that are 80 and 70 and 90, but not 200 years old.
Thank you, Mr. President. What can you tell us about the CIA drone flights over Mexico? Is this the next step in the war against the cartels?
Well, we're going to see.
Should they have authority to take lethal action?
Mexico's allowed a tremendous number of people to go through their country and tours, and even people coming from Mexico, and illegals, totally illegal. But I will say this, we're dealing with Mexico. I have a very good relationship with Mexico, but Mexico, if you look at what's gone on with Mexico for years now, but now especially it's run by the cartels, and they've allowed millions of people to come into our country from jails and prisons of other countries from all over the world, not just South America, Africa, Asia, all over, a lot from the Congo in Africa, a lot. They opened their jails, they came in through Mexico, and we have some of the worst criminals coming in from the Congo and other places, so it's not just South America. And it's not just Venezuela, but they open their jails. And you know the crime rates in Venezuela and other places all over the world has gone way down. You know why? Because they've given us their prisoners, they've given us their drug lords and their gang members. And it's hard to believe that we accepted this. It's hard to believe that we allowed open borders, and we're taking in hundreds of thousands and millions of people coming in from all over the world. They're absolute stone cold.
It's pretty crazy that all of these violent criminals from all around the world are coming to America, and yet instead of doing crimes, they're actually unironically through their presence and their proclivity to do less crime as opposed to the existing natural-born U.S. population, lowering the crime rate in the United States of America across the board. It's crazy. I guess like when they come to America, they just no longer want to do crimes magically. You know, they're like, oh yeah, well, we got jobs here, so no reason to do crimes. I guess that's what it is. America, truly the nation of rehabilitation. The Doge team is finally posting examples of where they've cut spending. This one claims $8 billion in savings, bottom figure, but if you look at the fine upper print, the contract instead is valued at $8 million. What did they even cut? They cut U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, investigations on Operation Support Dallas, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, Equal Employment Opportunity Funding Office. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. Once again, lying is OP. Lying, especially due to incompetence, is doubly OP because when you... Speaking of reducing the workforce at the behest of eliminating redundancies, here's another aspect where you simply cannot cheap out, which is safety. FAA employee fired by the Trump administration expresses shock over removal. The Trump administration is also obviously, while all of these planes are falling out of the sky or, you know, having all these like weird incidents over and over again, on the other hand, our brilliant government is supercharging dreams of the Reaganite era of the past, or finishing the job that Reagan started, basically. All right, here it is.
In this country, Trump's acting Social Security commissioner stepped down over the weekend. According to multiple reports, she had resisted letting Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency look inside the agency's most sensitive records. The White House is saying that DOGE is looking to eliminate waste and fraud. And this morning, Nancy Cordes has the story of one of the thousands of federal workers already fired since Trump took office.
And I was in complete disbelief.
Monica, who asked us not to use her last name, was hired by the FAA in December to be an aviation safety assistant at Dallas-Fort Worth.
Yeah, if you know anything about the FAA aviation safety inspectors, we simply have too many of them, you know? When I think of aviation safety, I think the guys responsible for it, there's probably too many. We need to make it less safe, please. That's what I think. Like, there is no world in which, especially on this side of things, but you can make this argument for virtually every aspect of the federal government, where there is need for less people, okay? No, there's need for more people. Understaffing is so commonplace everywhere. There is a problem with understaffing in virtually all aspects of the regulatory agencies, virtually all aspects of all the goods and services that you consume in general. Okay, there's understaffing issues at hospitals with nurses. There's understaffing issues everywhere. The notion that we need less people, or fewer people and not more people, is ridiculous.
Worth Airport. She was part of the team that filed inspections and reports on the American Airlines fleet.
I personally did not feel that our positions were at risk for the simple fact that we are in the Flight Standards Safety Division. It says its name, right? Flight and Safety.
But on Friday, she was let go. With less than a year on the job, she had not yet received civil service protections. The stinging dismissal email blamed her performance and said, "You have not demonstrated that your further employment at the DOT FAA would be in the public interest."
There have been no negative comments or feedback until I got this letter about performance.
What this really does appear to be is just a purely false stated reason.
Employment lawyer Michal Shinar says the reason Trump's team has been citing performance in firings is because by law, probationary federal workers can only be removed for performance or misconduct.
We don't let an agency get around these congressional directives by just terminating our probationary employees and mass claiming it's performance when it's not.
They're firing every probationary worker with rare exceptions. They're saying that performance is below standards and firing probies, so they can't file for reinstatement via the MSPB.
She says the situation is ripe for class action lawsuits, while Trump officials insist these cuts are just a drop in the bucket. Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy posting last night, quote, the FAA alone has a staggering 45,000 employees. Less than 400 were let go.
Oh, my
We're still
God.
waiting for the exact numbers of cuts at most other agencies like the CDC and NIH. Nate?
We will stay tuned. Nancy, thank you.
Isn't there already a shortage at the FAA? Why do this now?
I want to look at something, okay? Number of federal government employees in, or let's see, year over year. The size of the federal workforce has grown from 1.8 million in 2019 to 2 million in 2023. But there was a time and place where I feel like, maybe I'm wrong, but the federal workforce number was certainly larger, despite the fact that the American population has been growing. Yeah, in the 1950s, the federal government employed 1.4 million people. Oh, this is an AI overview. What the f? Oh, God, why is there so much? In the 1960s, that's incorrect. God, an AI overview. What the f is this number, bro? Look at this AI overview. Thank you, Google. In the 1950s, the federal government employed what is this number, dude? It's not even 1.4 million. It's 1,433,753,686.485 people. I hate AI so much. Okay, yes, thank you. The number of federal employees peaked in the 1990s at 3.4 million. Okay, God, AI is so stupid. Here, this is what I was actually looking at. Okay, from the 1940s onward, obviously in 1943 there was one big peak at 3 million, and the peak of federal employment in 1990 was 3.4 million. And since the 90s onward, we have slashed the federal workforce, in spite of the fact that the number of our civilian population has grown, okay? Our population has grown dramatically overall. So the federal civilian employee per population per capita has gone down, okay? So we have more people and less federal employees in that process. The little spikes are temporary census workers, yeah. But overall, it grew and grew and grew, and it was around 3 million, I guess. And then since then it has just gone down. Bill Clinton had a drawdown on federal staffing due to the Cold War. Reagan also had fired people, PATCO workers, essentially 300 to 400,000 people were fired under Clinton. But the news is saying what Trump is doing is the same as Clinton. It patently isn't. Yeah, I mean, what Clinton did wasn't also great either, for the record. I hope you understand. So the government is more efficient now. It's more efficient in terms of, like, obviously readily available technology. Readily available technology makes every workforce more efficient. Like, what else has happened since the 90s? We have mass usage of the internet. We have smartphones. Obviously, it's more efficient, as in one person can do the job of many in significantly less time. That's efficiency. We have computers. Technological advancements unironically make things more efficient. But in that process, you're not supposed to fire the existing workforce. You're supposed to reduce their burden. You're supposed to reduce their workload. But of course, we don't operate like that because we're constantly min-maxing. But especially when you pair this up with the explosive growth of the American population in that same time frame, you start realizing that perhaps we don't have enough employees for all of these jobs. And when you don't have enough employees for these jobs, you have your service overall. That's it. And what a lot of people fail to understand is that, for example, when you go to the DMV and the service is even like the person that's working at the DMV, for example, is just angry all the time, seemingly, and you have to wait for hours. That is not because the government sucks. That's because they don't have enough employees. That's it. It's always because of understaffing. I'll give you one example. Luggage handlers. Luggage handlers is a great example. Airlines know full well when they're overloading their existing labor force, okay? But because of efficiency and because of cost-cutting measures, because labor is the most malleable aspect of all commodity production, they just simply don't hire enough luggage handlers. So when you go to the airport and you're like, why the f is my luggage not coming out? What the hell's going on? Why do I have to wait an hour and a half? I missed my transferring flight. I missed my connecting flight. What is happening here? That is literally because the luggage handlers are overloaded, understaffed, understaffed and are doing output as a consequence of that. You just see the service there and you think, oh, these lazy pieces of these lazy luggage handlers, man, they suck. But the reality of the matter is, the reason why at the point of service, the reason why you're experiencing this this awful service is directly due to the company making these decisions at the behest of profit, especially because most airlines, like in domestic air travel in the United States of America, it's basically an oligopoly. And in some markets, it's basically a monopoly. So what are you going to do? Not fly to your destination when it's the only method of travel? What are you going to do? No, you have to sit there frustrated and wait. That's how it works. But because we are so primed into thinking that it's actually our fellow workers that are responsible for these issues individually because of their ineptitude, incompetence, lack of care, lack of interest, laziness, or whatever, we never truly understand who is at fault. And it's a very frustrating process. When the lines of the grocery store are too long, it's the employee's fault. When the line of the post office is too long, it's because the government's bad. I mean, when the line of the post office is too long, it's still a direct consequence of the same exact thing that we were just talking about. The line of the post office is long because the post office is understaffed. Everything is understaffed. These guys are still actively advocating for more understaffing. It's not the employee's fault at the grocery store. It is still understaffing. So it's technically the people that are in charge of those decisions that have caused this this service to be worse overall.
Especially considering what's happened in the States, and now, of course, you have this other incident and a few others.
Yeah, well, this one happened in Canada, but
yes.
I mean, I can only tell you what the Secretary of Transportation says. There are 45,000 employees at the FAA. We're talking about fewer than 400 people, and he says 0 air traffic controllers and critical safety personnel were let go. So if that's true, I don't really have a problem with it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I love this dipshit, okay? I remember reading somewhere, I think it was like, it might have been like Felix or maybe Edinger Mentum. It was like, Scott Jennings is the perfect person for this administration because he's such a shameless, slimy asshole who will just sit there and be like, well, the marginal victory that the Trump administration had at a time of like historic inflation against a historically unpopular cadaver seemingly gives Donald Trump the heavens mandate, the popular mandate to do all of these like staff cuts. It's so annoying. Like, no, you don't have momentum. You do not have motion. You do not have popular mobilization, especially for cutting Social Security, okay?
I do like the idea of keeping the people who are in the direct chain of command of safety and the air traffic control system and so on and so forth. But I have a hard time believing that there is a single government agency.
Yeah, I had this exact, nice bathroom, you're 100% correct. We had this exact same conversation with Twitter, okay? Remember when Twitter employees were laid off? The conversation is the same. They were lazy and not innovating anyway, so what's the loss? Exactly. Twitter as a product is legitimately worse. Like, I don't know how you can't recognize that. And I told you, like, Twitter is a perfect example of the government, okay? It's like one for one. Twitter, when it was run by woke liberals or whatever, right? It still sucked. There were still plenty of issues, but at least it was a more competent product that you could consume, okay? And then Elon Musk came in and gutted the entirety of the staff. Look where we're at now. Like, it still works. Like, the skeleton is still there and it still kind of works. There's still major issues all the time. So people go, oh, dude, it's fine. What are you talking about? Every aspect of Twitter is awful. It got significantly worse than the Twitter of the past when it was run by at least like to some degree of competency by liberals.
An agency that doesn't have a bloat of administrative personnel that we could probably do without. And I think that's why a lot of voters are happy that Donald Trump and Elon Musk are finally going through the federal government and trying to take out some of this bureaucracy that we probably just don't need. So I'm reading to you what Sean Duffy says. He's the Secretary of the Transportation. I have no reason to doubt his numbers.
Karen, when you hear this,
yeah, he knows best. Scientists, woke and gay, they don't know best when they're talking about their specific field of research. Sean Duffy, television personality, well, he's the transportation secretary, so he knows best, okay? Pete Hegseth, well, guess what? He's leading the DOD. I don't see you leading the DOD. He's not a DEI candidate. He's a DUI candidate. Okay, that's right. He knows best.
Look, Americans are concerned about bloat in the federal government. They have been for a very long time. What do you make of how it's been meted out?
So the concern that and I think a lot of Americans have, we can all agree there's bloat. We can all agree that we need to deal with that. At the same time, what we're seeing is speed for the sake of creating momentum to create a sense of things are happening. At the same time, look what happened Friday. We had nuclear scientists fired, and then they said, oops, we need those people because they have a technical skill that nobody else has. So the problem that I have with the way they're doing it is, and I went to the DOJ website to see if they would say anything about, look, we are conducting this process to make sure we don't harm American safety, their health, or take money out of their wallets. They don't say that. And we're finding out the consequences and the impact of some of these things. If you're a doctor for the VA in the Midwest and you're told you're going to be...
This is a problem born out of not having any principled leftists on any number of different mainstream outlets. Understand, the automatic position of the most quote unquote like anti-Trump liberal on the panel should not be that it's definitely for the greater good that we're engaging in mass layoffs in the federal government. You shouldn't be playing catch up. Your first position should be that there is no reason to engage in layoffs at a time when we should probably be hiring more people. But because their underlying worldview is unfortunately so similar to the Republican worldview in terms of maximizing efficiency, they start the position by saying, no, there is actually reason to like fire a bunch of government employees. They're just not doing it right, and they're firing the wrong people. No, that's not what you're supposed to say. You're supposed to say, what the fuck are you doing? We need more people working, not less. That should be your starting position. And then you work your way up to that argument, which is that, and here is why it's really stupid when you engage in these sorts of idiotic layoffs, because obviously you're eliminating a bunch of positions that were, eliminating the positions of a bunch of government employees that were working on really important things. That's why it was so frustrating for me when I saw Ro Khanna start off by being like, well, Bill Clinton did a fantastic job eliminating 400,000 federal government employees, but he did it by working with Congress. It's like, that's not, like, why are you presenting that as a good thing? Don't you realize that the underlying ideology there, the underlying premise that you're operating off of is that it is a good thing to fire government employees? How is this in any way, shape, or form an adequate counterbalance to the Republican neoliberalism? This is why I say, and many others say correctly, that the Democrats are also neoliberal.
Be fired, or you're waiting for this, court to play out. What are you supposed to do with your client the veteran who's got PTSD? Are you trying to find them someone else to go see because you're not sure if you're going to be there in 2 weeks? Or are you assuming you'll be spared because someone will figure out that it's probably not smart to get rid of doctors who are at the VA who may be working on a critical function? So that's the concern. I think this could have been done with a lot more thoughtfulness about how do we protect people's safety. Even if you said, look, we're going to take 2 weeks at each agency and try to do some kind of rubric to make an assessment, not putting it into an AI system, by the way, which is some of what we've read that they've done. And I think what we're going to find is a number of these oops moments that could be dangerous.
I just think they need to read the...
Don't you only fire government employees when your economy's in the and you're producing as much as you should? Sure, it will work in Argentina, but why is it being done in the U.S. with very competent workers? First of all, it's also not good in Argentina either. I don't think austerity is a good thing. It's definitely not a good thing. If it was a good thing, we wouldn't enforce it upon the entirety of the global South. It's just wild because now we're accelerating it to our and doing it to ourselves. We've always, one might say, Republicans have always engaged in this sort of thing, but never to this degree.
I mean, there have been 3 major plane crashes in just, less than a month. One of them was just a few blocks from the high school I went to in Northeast Philadelphia. And, tell that to the little boy with the metal in his head, trying to protect his sister during that plane crash. I think that not only do you have to protect the safety of Americans physically, but I think you have to protect our safety mentally. We see you laying off people from the FAA. At this point, nobody at the FAA is dispensable. I think you have to keep everybody there at least, for the time being, because we've had these major plane crashes that you haven't seen in 16 years.
Kevin, the optics of this is
I think the issue is they're not whacking enough.
There's this concept in private equity when you get a bankrupt.
God, I mean, how can people look at this guy and not see him as anything but a villain, bro? First of all, you're Canadian. Excuse me, ICE, this bald right here, okay? What is his productive output on U.S. soil? You know what I mean? Get this guy out of here. Pack him up. What the hell is this? Send his back to Canada. Yeah, I'm gonna Laken Riley act his ass. I'm gonna be like, I saw him stealing a bag of Skittles. Deport him, please. Yeah, I saw him getting in a boat again. Arrest him, officers. You know what he's done in boats in the past. And this time his wife wasn't even in the boat. So he got no one else to blame this time. Okay? Same guy.
This is according to Oxfam. Of the world's 85 richest people is equal to the 3.5 billion poorest people.
It's fantastic. And this is a great thing because it inspires everybody, gets the motivation to look up to the 1% and say, I want to become one of those people.
I'm a child born in Rwanda with a genetic disorder. I can't wait to look up to the 1% and feel the aspirational goals. I'm feeling my bootstraps right now. I can't see with my eyes. I'm feeling with my hands the bootstraps that I will be tugging on. Fantastic. Psychopath, dude.
Well, I'm going to fight hard to get up to the top. This is fantastic news.
Yeah, low key, think he's helping with the cause with shit like this. Let him cook. No, dude. You want to know why? I used to think that too. But these past couple of years, like especially with Elon Musk getting a prominent position in the government, has caused me to realize that no, actually, people don't realize how stupid these dudes are. They don't realize how evil these dudes are. They just genuinely think it's God ordained and they deserve the position that they have in society. I'm not even kidding. Like, poor hogs love this shit, dude. They love this shit. Americans are incredibly servile. Absolutely. Absolutely, dude. Oh my God. They cannot imagine looking at a guy like this and thinking that's a villain. That's an evil villain. He's doing evil villain talk right now.
News, and of course I applaud it. What can be wrong with this?
Really?
Yes, really.
So somebody living on
I celebrate capitalism.
$1 a day in Africa is getting up in the morning and saying, I'm going to be Bill Gates.
That's the motivation everybody needs.
Between me and
I'm
that
not
guy
against
is
charity.
She's right. She should cook this ass. Damn, look at the CBC, bro. Someone living on one day. Me too. Only thing, you hear that? Hey guys, if you live in the global south and your government has been destabilized actively or propped up by the Western forces, okay, and you're working in horrifying conditions every day, you just didn't aspire hard enough. You don't have that Sigma grind set, dude.
Company, and you go in there, you cut 20% more than your initial read. And then you find like a pool of mercury, the organization gels back together again. Always cut deeper, harder when there's fat and waste.
If that's the case, why don't we take away all your wealth and then make you start from square one again? I mean, after all, you've done it once, you can do it again, right? And also, it's super simple. Right? It'll make you grind harder, Kevin. I think that's what we should do. We should hit a reset real quick, you know? Dude, think about how much motivation he will have if he has nothing. The less you have, the more aspirational you are. Get back in the grind, dog. You should be excited.
Hey, it's not the people. The code is cobalt. It's from the 60s. It needs CapEx put into it for the technology to be upgraded to make it safer. Fat like a chicken. All of these agencies are like big fat chickens dripping over barbecues of fat. This is the best barbecue I've ever seen, but I don't think it's happening fast enough. They're not cutting enough. Keep slashing,
cobalt.
Keep hacking while you have
the new old coding system, cobalt. At least he got close enough, dude. I don't even think Elon knows what that is, for the record. At least he got close enough to saying sounding it out almost correctly. Close enough. I know it's cobalt. All I'm stating is Elon doesn't even know what that is. That's how low the fucking standards are.
Cut. More cutting. Believe me, it's going to work out just great. Everybody should be happy.
Even people with the nuclear codes, cut them too.
Cut everything. Because if you don't see what they're doing and they can't show you that they're adding value, you whack.
But it's clear that they're even asking people to show us what you're doing. Again, This was a story Friday, and literally Elon said, "Oops, we gotta rehire them because nobody knows how to do what these people know how to do."
Yeah, that nuclear thing. Okay, gets it wrong once in a while. Big deal. So what?
I agree with
That's
that.
10% of the time.
It's okay. I actually think it's okay if they run into a stumble here or there because the project is so massive. The need to cut is so massive. The government is so massive. It's inconceivable that you wouldn't make a mistake here or there. But I think that's acceptable if the greater goal is achieved, which is a smaller government, more efficient government.
Even if someone dies, or even if someone,
are you alleging that someone has died?
We don't know. I'm talking about when the rubber meets the road. I'm talking about, for example, Kansas City. 30,000 government employees might be laid off. It will destroy the economy of Kansas City. That's okay.
Why do you say that?
Because I'm reading what the individuals from Kansas City have been saying, that they're very concerned.
What do you think they're going to say when they're going to get whacked?
Of course they're going to say that, but my point is, do you think that's smart? Does live in an American city just go under?
How many American cities need a massively oversized federal government to stay afloat? I mean, isn't that says more about the city than the government?
But when did we get to the point where presidents are measuring themselves by how many people they put out of work instead of how many people they get jobs
for? A moment too soon.
Yeah, this is crazy. This is
because the government only ever gets bigger.
Yeah, of course. Oh, God, I hate this. I hate this so much because under normal circumstances, everyone should understand the position that he is advocating for, which is mass layoffs. He doesn't have to care about it because his job relies on him being careless about that sort of thing. He probably doesn't have any immediate family members that will be impacted by this. This is at the heart of so much of the conservative commentary, just being a smug, out of touch. Incredibly frustrating. Incredibly frustrating. I already talked about this before with Alabama, the state of Alabama. In the state of Alabama, the University of Alabama is the second largest hiring body in the entire state. Okay, public sector jobs that'll be lost in that process. Okay, they rely on those grants. Cut those grants, you have to cut those jobs. A lot of those people that are being cut on the overhead side are going to not necessarily be woke and gay college professors or whatever, even though that's also ridiculous, right? To cut those jobs is also ridiculous. But there are going to be janitorial staff and things like that, okay?
Chickens, hopefully they lay some eggs and maybe then we can afford it.
This strikes me as something that was done just for the sake of doing. And I think it was a tone-deaf move. It wasn't a big enough cut to do anything. It was a completely tone-deaf move. I mean, I find people are always interested in efficiency as long as it doesn't affect them. And it's strange to me that we got enough people to go and ride around the racetrack behind the presidential limousine and such, and to guard 3 residences, and we're never cutting people.
All right, here's a fun story, at least for me. Kathy Hochul, unchained, question mark. I just find it funny to see, like, she was picked by Cuomo to not be a threat to him, right? I mean, this is the way that guy operated. But then he's a total creep, had to resign, had to leave office. And so she became the governor. She won re-election more narrowly than she probably should have in New York State. I mean, more narrowly than she should have. Nancy Pelosi called her out and was saying how she's a drag on the rest of New York Democrats. So she's not the best politician, but she's like sort of being handed a gift by Donald Trump to be like, I'm the real New Yorker and I'm going to stand up to the king. Speaking of that, I mean, Bradley, pull up the king thing. So, like, this series of events is that Eric Adams is being extorted by the Trump Department of Justice to enforce...
Openly being extorted. We should really
openly
ram that home. Yeah,
like, exactly.
It is so
like,
obvious.
It was a quid pro quo.
Yeah, they did it. I'm sure you guys played the clip. The head of ICE said it on Fox News, sitting next to Eric Adams. If you don't know, if you cause any trouble for us with what we're set out to do here in New York, we won't be sitting here together on TV. I'll be up in your office saying what happened to our deal. What deal? What are you talking about? What?
Right. And the prosecutor who resigned called it a quid pro quo in the actual document. The, again, Trump-appointed Federalist Society Scalia clerk, who was appointed on January 21st, said that in her resignation letter, just to give you a sense of how insanely corrupt this is. So basically, Trump truths about this. He decides, he decrees, the king, congestion pricing is dead, and Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. Anybody that lives in Manhattan or New York, including like a bunch of these barstool chuds, are tweeting angrily about this because they're like, oh, actually congestion pricing is pretty awesome. We have way less traffic. The air feels better. Ambulances can get from one part of the city to the other, and it can save literal lives. We're really enjoying it. And so they were pushing back, funnily enough, on social media. It's popular within the city. But Hochul also has to contend with, you know, the upstate areas, and Phil Murphy right now is sucking up to Donald Trump because the New Jersey commuters are all upset that, God forbid, they have to take public transit to go into the city or pay a $9 toll. The people who are lower income are exempt from this, folks. You can get a waiver. So it's just wealthier suburbanites who are pissed that they have to pay a fee to drive into the city. So Trump decrees it's over. He can't do that. It's a state law. It was passed in New York State. It's being implemented. Subway repairs are being funded by this. It's already underway. And then do you have the photo of him tweeting out he tweeted out a Photoshop Time magazine cover of him saying, "I'm the king." We don't need it. People have seen it before, whatever, maybe for later, with a crown on his head. And here's Kathy Hochul responding to it, and she got a little spicy, said the damn word.
Governor, you canceled a meeting with Donald Trump last week. Do you regret doing that, where you could have maybe struck a deal with him? And would you still be willing to strike a deal with him now if he agrees to give the $13 billion or whatever it would be if congestion pricing is turned off?
Bernadette, there is no connection between me saying to him last week, the day he invited me to come down to have this conversation, which I have been pursuing, and then 3 hours later, I see on national television that his Attorney General, Pam Bondi, is now saying she's filing charges against me as governor of New York. I called up the president and said, I'm not coming down tomorrow. I don't know what your plan is. You're going to slap handcuffs on my goddamn hands? So I'm not coming down, but I will be back later in the week, which will be this week, when our national governors gather. And he said, that's fine. We'll get together and we'll talk. That's why I know it has no bearing, despite the premise behind the question.
Dark Kathy, what are you gonna do? Slap handcuffs on my goddamn hands? I'll go to jail to protect the congestion pricing. So this
was someone, by the way, who just a couple of months ago had paused.
How times have changed.
I know. Because it ended up being an insanely popular policy here in New York.
Yes.
Like there's video
more popular.
Video of people like talking shit about it, and then like a few days later posting another video that's like, I've been driving here with congestion pricing, and I gotta say, I'm sorry for what I said. This is great.
Yeah. So she's feeling herself a little right now. She's feeling a little emboldened, and she gets gifts like this. I mean, she gets to do the it's not nationalism, statism, whatever, but like New York federalism sovereignty, the New York pride thing, because Trump's just like, you know, he's triggering the libs with this. That's what his supporters love about him. But like, everybody's supposed to be your constituent as the president. Like, and not to be corny about this, but who are you triggering? The people that you're supposed to be protecting and serving and like using the Constitution to help. I mean, that's kind of the core promise of the presidency, ideally. But here's the photo of him. Congestion pricing is dead. Manhattan and all of New York is saved. Long live the king. And then he put out this Photoshop Time magazine cover of him, which he loved to do at his golf courses prior to this.
Essentially, that these people are the ones who celebrate Western civilization, because in my opinion, one of the things that I would associate with the development of the Western Hemisphere is not doing king stuff.
Well, Hochul said that at another point in her press conference, like, we fought 250 years ago against the king, and we're not gonna have one now. And so it's easy.
France did too.
It's an easy note to hit, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny to see him reinvigorating her, because she was primed for a serious and potentially like fatal for her political career primary challenge just around the corner and still might happen, but
should still happen.
It probably should, yeah. But I mean, Delgado is the same kind of person. So I mean, or Richie Torres is the other person that is being floated, and frankly, I'd rather have Hochul over Richie Torres. But I pretty much want to have any other Democrat.
If the state would vote for Richie Torres, we need to start talking about voters being the problem.
Yeah, but thoughts, you guys, on this whole shenanigans? These whole shenanigans here?
I mean, yeah, I think this is all to distract people. I hate to call what Trump does a distraction because there are always a human cost to it. But so much of what he's been doing over the past 3 weeks seems to be trying to distract his voters from the fact that he's firing half of them, and also the price of eggs hasn't gone down. And so look at me trigger the governor of New York, that lib state. Look at me beefing with Rashida Tlaib online, things that are going to, I think, not really be sustainable to get people to forget that they're being consistently made poorer, right? I mean, I thought that was a big part of why he had that press conference with Elon too, because on every local news channel you watch now, they're just endless coverage of 50 people from the USDA in Iowa were fired, and they make sure that the soil is clean, and also the price for the eggs just hit $14 here, and they're saying there's going to be a shortage of this. The news all over America is bad, and I think it's going to catch up with him. Right now he's still in that phase of you gotta let the chef cook. Biden really screwed things up. Look at me triggering the libs. But you can only distract people, I think, from the material conditions that they're experiencing for so long. Like I said on my own stream, I was just America's out of bread, so we're getting a lot of circuses, and so Trump is that. He's making the circus as big as possible before people become rightfully aware that he's part of the problem.
His disapproval rating has gone up 10 points in a month. It went from 41% to 51%. I headlined that yesterday, and it's that's a very quick turnaround. Usually the honeymoon lasts a little bit longer than the equivalent of 12 hours
Planes are falling from the sky.
President years.
It's hard to ignore. Planes are falling from the sky.
Yes. President plane crash, trademark it.
There was Emma, excuse me, it's Captain Chaos.
Oh, sorry, Captain plane crash.
Harry Enton, the polling expert on CNN, had a segment today that basically showed that every recent poll is showing a multiple point step down already, and also that he's even underwater specifically as you were saying, when it specifically comes to the economy, which is surprising because seemingly that was his biggest benchmark.
Usually
to
Republicans
and Republicans in general, but relative to Harris, who that was always, I think, the issue in the 2024 cycle, and he's already hemorrhaging support on that specific front as well.
Yeah, and on that front, there's a lot to criticize Hakeem Jeffries for and Chuck Schumer, although I think the ultimate goal should be to remove them, because I don't think they can be good. But people need to stop getting mad that they're emphasizing things like egg prices and stuff like that. That is an improvement for what the people who want them to just focus on the sort of power grab constitutionally, I think that's important too. But what's really going after Trump's numbers right now is the economic stuff that he's not going to be able to defy. And to have Democrats emphasizing that should be encouraged.
Yeah, Ryan from Rochester writes in, Biden couldn't distract people from their material conditions. Now Trump inherits that inescapable situation, right? Trump's a better distractor because of how he acts. But my issue with Jeffries and Chuck Schumer on that specific issue broadly, I think their messaging is one of a massive problem and their lack of desire to fight. But it's point out the egg prices and the material conditions and then offer an alternative. They're not doing that. They're still just criticizing him on that terrain. But I didn't even, I think, connect, just to clarify for people, why Hochul was even, what is the connection of Eric Adams and him going after Hochul. Like Pam Bondi's apparently said you're next last week to Hochul and State AG Letitia James, because they are a part of this group that is considering removing Eric Adams because he is compromised by being extorted by the President of the United States. They haven't even done it yet. They just put together a panel to consider doing it. And I was pretty pissed about the fact that they hadn't just done it. Obviously, he's compromised, and I'm concerned for immigrants in the city being rounded up by ICE. So you have to weigh that. But the other consideration apparently is that if Adams gets removed after March 26, then they don't have to do a special election. The concern is that if they remove him prior to that date, a special election will have to be held before there is the primary, where I'm ranking Mamdani first. I hope a lot of other people do. It's a real opportunity for us as New Yorkers. The concern that he would win in the special election, and that would give him a significant advantage going into that primary. So the deadline is March 26 apparently, and then after that, you wouldn't need to have a special election prior to the primary in June.
Also, just a note related to Jeffries on this front. Jeff Colton, reporter, 8 black state legislators asked Hochul not to remove Adams. Quote, our communities will never let it forget, and it will never forget it if she does, and she should leave it up to voters. I've seen like Jabari Brispert point out the sort of silliness of this. But I would also just emphasize what Jeff Colton says in the second part. Led by Brooklyn Dem leaders Rodney Pichot Hermelin, the list also includes lawmakers close to Jeffries.
Yeah, and also the man that would replace Eric Adams is also a black man, so it's just like it just gets a little ridiculous at this point. I mean,
that's just also like the New York machine just desperately clinging on to what they know is theirs, which is, you know, Adams is going to be in their corner if he hangs on, and someone like Jumaane Williams, the New York City public advocate who would be his successor, is like resolutely anti-machine.
Right. I mean, do you remember when the Congressional Black Caucus endorsed Elliot Engel when Jamal Bowman was running against him? I mean, there's a lot of hypocrisy there.
This is corruption. I mean, Jabari Brispert, I'll keep this respectful. Defending Eric Adams because he's a black mayor while he allows ICE to harass black immigrant communities is contradictory. And, you know, I appreciate Jabari keeping that respectful.
Right. And NBC is reporting just as of like 15 minutes ago that Hochul, according to a source, Hochul won't remove Adams from office right now, but will limit his power and impose strict guardrails on his administration. We don't know. I don't know what that means yet, but I guess we'll find out. Apparently, she's going to have a press conference at 4 p.m.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, it's a tricky situation for what I just said. I mean, there's the electoral considerations, and then there's also the safety considerations for people who are immigrants. Like Eric Adams said, I think yesterday, that ICE can enter churches if they want, or refuse to decline it, and said, okay, maybe they need a warrant. Like, doubtful.
And just to be clear, like, that stuff is massively unpopular. ICE going into schools or churches, like, to the extent that they don't do that, it's not just because cities won't let them, it's because it massively backfires in terms of PR.
Also, I mean, it clearly won't stop at that as well. Like, it'll just continue to, escalate, right? Like, that's the danger of trying to ignore how it's going to impact the most vulnerable community, because, Trump will just continue to, like, push, and his law enforcement apparatus will continue to overstep in New York City, and the police will be emboldened as well as a result of that, like the already terrible NYPD. But yeah, no, I mean, Kathy Hochul should just call out Pam Bondi and be like, oh, I see, I thought you were going after Hillary Clinton, and now suddenly, whatever happened to that? Whatever happened to Hillary? Yeah, well, like, Hillary's still walking free. Like, just really dig it in. Remind Trump voters that they're not getting anything. It's just like, oh, yeah, I guess.
Agents of Hillary Clinton. Like, actually, you're the dog that won't bark against Hillary.
I like Hochul becoming Jimmy Dore and just obsessed with the Seth Rich case all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, like, Trump has 3 puppet masters: Netanyahu, Elon Musk, and Hillary Clinton. They're just like the real, like, living tribunal behind the presidency. It's true. I mean, it is basically true.
He was out there winning, folks.
That's very true.
Kathy Hochul goes in her press conference today. What happened to the laptop from hell?
Yeah, what happened?
Where's Hunter?
Hunter's walking free. 17 January 6ers that were already back in prison due to incidents, and Hunter Biden's walking free. Yeah, deep state's really being cleaned up.
Interesting.
It's very. I'm just asking questions. I'm asking why Hillary. Oh, we're gonna send immigrants to Guantanamo. Hillary Clinton is living free. That's crazy. That's crazy to me. But I mean, I guess I just remember what he was saying. So
I remember promises made.
Yeah. Well,
She locked up yet?
Nope.
That was my single issue. And I was a single issue voter, and that was it.
To this day, I believe Trump or Elon will go to jail before Hillary Clinton goes to prison for anything.
This is why I can't believe in politics.
It's why you can't. It's like, you know where all your eggs are? Hillary has them. That's where she's buying them up. She's making cakes. She's buying them up, making cakes, feeding them to, I don't know, endangered whales or something.
The mother hen of the deep state.
It's crazy. It's crazy they're out here.
Yeah. All right, that was good. A guy from Brooklyn, Schumer and Gillibrand both voted to confirm the Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy, who is now going to withhold federal transportation funding for New York City. Yep.
Well, he was on road rules, so he must know something about transportation.
And that's a good point.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.
Don't forget the pizza.
Take a seat.
Enemy shooter.
Secure at C.
Ethan Klein is now threatening the mod teams of various different subreddits, including the H3 Snark and YouTube Drama. What's cracking, Angelina Scott, and welcome to another episode of I Am Cold.
Watch it.
I'm very cold today, guys. That's the whole episode. But in today's episode of I Am Cold, we're going to be talking about Ethan Klein. Now, on the H3 Snark, an announcement was made. H3 Snark is on a break. Hey, H3 Snarkers, we're writing to let you know that the subreddit is going on break, effective immediately until further notice. Please keep an eye out for an announcement in the near future. We appreciate your patience and understanding. And then, after this, Ethan Klein posted to his story, if I can scroll through all the million of stories, he posted this from the H3 Snark and said, "It won't save you scumbags from what's coming. I can't wait for your family, friends, work, and school to know what you've been up to." Which made it sound very much like he was threatening to dox the mod teams here. And he said, "Dear Snark mods, you have one opportunity to save your ass. Contact us with information about your fellow mods and collaborators, and I will spare you in what's to come. This is your one and only chance." So he's basically trying to say, hey guys, come dox these people to me, and I won't come after you. Now, he's being very vague here about what he's talking about, but the fact that he says in the previous story that your family, friends, work, and school know what you've been up to, make it sound like he's planning to dox them. Because how else would this happen? Now, Ethan Klein, as we've talked about in the past, hasn't been shy about threatening to dox people before. Allegedly. Maybe. Depending on who you ask. Wouldn't put it past him. I still think it's a crappy thing to do. For some reason, people have this kind of opinion of doxing that, like, sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's okay, just because they side with the person who's doing the doxing. And I can guarantee you, even if somebody that I really looked up to, I really liked, decided to dox somebody and they claimed they had a good reason for it, I'd be like, what is this person doing? This is not okay. Doxing is not something you do, especially if you have a huge platform, because it can put people in real life danger. It takes it off the internet and into the real world. You can make these matters private, you can deal with them privately, and we're going to get into that because he claims that he's not actually trying to dox him. He claims it's something else. But there's more stories. Two of the main mods are actually Trisha superfans. Ironic that they organized a harassment campaign to ruin my life for being a Zionist when Trisha is actually a Jewish supremacist, which is really hard to say, as I've just found out. And Moses has fought in combat for the IDF. You have spent all of your free time since October 7th, 2023 in an effort to torture me, my wife, my family, my employees, my friends. You have defamed me, knowingly falsified images, broken laws, and interfered in my business. This is where we're getting into the legal aspect. Nobody should ever have to endure this level of malicious harassment, and yet you have inflicted it on me and the people I love. You guys know me quite well, being long-time paying members. I hope that what proceeds won't... What? I hope that what proceeds, won't jeopardize your membership as we look forward and enjoy your continued patronage. And then this post was made in faux moi. I can't guarantee I'm saying that correctly, but I think it's faux moi, which was addressing Ethan Klein's threats against his subreddit. And he says it's called a subpoena, not doxing. It's a routine part of civil litigation, and all I need is an IP address, which is held for 100+ days, even if you erase your account. The network of sock puppet accounts will not save you, snarker. And that's kind of where it is. So I want to look at the faux moi post again. If I am saying that wrong, that is going to drive people insane. The amount of comments that I'm going to get is not how to say it. I'm sorry. Everybody seems to have a different opinion on how you actually pronounce this. But let's get to the faux moi post. So this was the post that they made, addressing Ethan Klein's threats against this subreddit. After Ela Klein publicly claimed to have lost a business partnership due to her nationality, a post was made on this sub pointing out that it was more likely due to the controversial and bigoted content that they have shared throughout the years. And then it goes on to link some controversial and bigoted content. Ethan Klein, Ela's husband and podcast host, then decided to share that post and compared this subreddit to neo-Nazis for posting reasonable critiques of their bigoted content on his Instagram story, directing his 2 million followers, in addition to members of his subreddit, of which he and his wife are moderators, to brigade and harass this sub. After this false allegation of neo-Nazism, various members of this sub started posting Ethan Klein's history of using racial slurs, anti-Semitism, esulaizing victims of terrorist attacks, and more. Full list below. Since he has accused this of being a coordinated attack, it is important to note that multiple different users have made posts about him. Users who have various interests and posts on this and other subs for years. He seems to think that people sharing video evidence of his bigotry is an anti-Semitic attack, coordinated across Discord and Reddit. Here are all of the posts that have been made about him since he claimed this sub was indistinguishable from a neo-Nazi forum. Okay, I feel like just for a little bit of context, we need to actually look at what's posted here now. I have, today, first time looking at this subreddit. I will admit that now. So if there's stuff going way, way back that is weird, I didn't know about it. But from what I can see, it's just posting about pop culture. You have stuff about Meghan Markle. You have whoever Guy Pearce is. You got more stuff about Ethan Klein. You have whatever's going on in the world, Doja Cat, like it's stuff like this. I did scroll through a lot more of it, but it is just literally like posting about everything that's going on. Obviously, like the people posting are going to have their own opinions. Like it's not an unbiased source, it's a subreddit. And so obviously if somebody's posting with their opinions and you don't like that opinion, fair enough. And I will say, like, I've said this before, I do agree that if somebody talks about you, it doesn't matter the size of your platform or not, you're allowed to respond. And I think that'll always be my opinion. I feel, you know, it just makes sense. Like the punching down thing, it doesn't really make sense to me. I mean, like, I still haven't watched the H3 episode where they talked about my video. I'm sorry, okay? Feels like it's kind of old now. Do I even need to watch it at this point? But like, yeah, he's allowed to do that. It's fine. And people are allowed to respond. I mean, he can dislike it and he can say what he likes. The issue is, I have found, at least from my own research, and this is fully my opinion, that his fans are... Ooh, there's a few of you guys in here right now, isn't there? You guys are a little bit much. Oh, a little bit much. You will go and harass people in defense of Ethan. At least in my own opinion, right? Everything I'm saying in this video is an opinion, guys. This is not a fact-based thing. Don't sue me. But you'll go and harass people on behalf of him, and he never steps in and says, guys, can we not do that? And my opinion is that because he likes having a little army of fans to do his bidding, to do his dirty work, and he doesn't really have to do it, but now he is kind of doing it, actually. But let's get back to this post, shall we? Could say a lot more than that. I'm obviously not going to go and read all of these posts, because that's a lot. That's not what this video is about. Ethan Klein has now gone live on YouTube and escalated this campaign by threatening multiple subreddits, including this one, saying he's being mass gaslighted, that he's never seen anyone in the history of the internet be harassed like this. Are you sure? Are you sure? Okay. And that Russian propagandists would blush at the hate campaign going against us. He has also said that a lot of these people think that they're safe, but they will soon find out that they're not safe, and that he's preparing stuff and working behind the scenes, and for his followers to stand back and stand by because there's something in the works that I just can't wait for. That's not what he sounds like. That's just what I've decided he sounds like now. He also said, "We'll get him, guys. We'll get him." Sounds like a Donald Trump quote. We'll get him, guys. We'll get him. You know me, I'll ruin my life in the pursuit of getting these people. I can't wait. I can't wait to show you guys what we're working on. He also said that now it's like a slur to be associated with his podcast. What does that mean? Okay. The threats are public on the latest video stream on his YouTube channel if anyone wants to verify these claims, but please do not harass or make threats in the comments. It does not help anyone's cause, nor does it change anyone's minds. Which I would agree. Yes, never go and harass people. It's loser behavior. He and the users on his sub who have been brigading and harassing other subs have also falsely claimed that there are common mods across all these subs, despite there only being one new mod whom begrudgingly mods Hassan Piker's sub. She's not a fan of him and has multiple criticisms of him in her comment history. And who was added as moderator to this sub after users posted criticisms of Ethan Klein and his bigoted content. Example of these old posts below, as well as users of all the subs he's mentioned in this video over the past few days, with multiple posts and comments on his subreddit, again, which he and his wife are mods for, that violate Reddit content policy. Example, posting mods and other users' information, sharing posts from these subs and encouraging users to brigade and harass mods and users. This is now likely to escalate, given that on his most recent live stream, he has essentially sent his users to Reddit again to brigade these subs and mods. By personally identifying a specific moderator on his stream, Klein is engaging in behavior that has historically led to serious harassment. At this stage, this is no longer about subreddit moderation decisions. This has become a case of a major content creator weaponizing their platform to intimidate and harass individual users. He is ironically claiming that there is a coordinated harassment campaign against him, when it's in fact his YouTube, Instagram, and Reddit followers who have been harassing people across subreddits for years, and probably beyond Reddit as well. And then they share some old posts. Additionally, Ethan has recently threatened to dox the H3 Snark subreddit users /mods, link here, due to which the subreddit has now gone on a break. We have avoided addressing this issue directly, other than setting up our Hive Protect bot to ban users who are brigading from his podcast subreddit. However, now that he has made formal threats, and presumably will be making further threats towards us and to Reddit under false pretenses, we want to get this all out there. And then they post, update, further threats have been issued by Ethan Klein via his Instagram account. Again, we have no idea what network he is alluding to. And this is about the post that we talked about a second ago on his story. Edit, we have also started receiving a barrage of just vague enough ominous mod mails threatening consequences from accounts with no other comments on the sub and or Reddit. Now, I have various thoughts on this, and I want to be fair and say there very well could be stuff going on behind the scenes that I know nothing about, stuff that isn't public, stuff that is potentially illegal behavior coming from these subreddit users, the snarkers, the mod teams that I don't know about and that the general public don't know about. And if there is a case to be made for Ethan to actually sue these people or go after them legally in some way, and he actually is in the right here, then he has every right to do that, obviously. But on the other hand, that is something that he could keep private. However, he is choosing to make this public. He is choosing to do this publicly, to wish that people's names be dragged into it publicly. And I feel like this comment on this post actually kind of sums it up well enough-ish. Somebody commented saying, seems to me more like he is suing for defamation, but I could be wrong. And this person says, from everything I've seen, he just wants their public information to be out there, which only leads to one thing: severe mass harassment from his millions of fans. He has no defamation case. Criticizing Ethan for the things he has said and done is not lawsuit worthy. If he sues, it's just to get the mod information. He's threatening the snark mods on Instagram right now. And this is kind of how I feel about it. And I want to go back to his own Instagram story about this, because he said it's called a subpoena, not doxing. It's a routine part of civil litigation, blah, 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 blah. So he's saying he's not doxing them. However, on his very first post, he's saying, it won't save you scumbags from what's coming. I can't wait for your family, friends, work, and school to know what you've been up to. So he wants their information publicly available out there. He wants people to know who these snarkers are, who these mod teams are. He wants the information out there. He wants it to have real life consequences for them. Now, again, if there's something really heinous going on that I don't know about that is crossing legal and moral boundaries, if there is actually a harassment campaign going on against him and his family and his co-workers, fine, deal with it legally. Probably better to do it privately. However, all I can see is that it's people posting on subreddits. And now, I will say, like, I've seen times, I've gone through the H3 snark a lot in the last week, unfortunately. Like, I'm not a user of it. I've said this before, but obviously I've made about 50 videos about Ethan Klein in the last 4 days, so I've been on it a lot. And there are a lot of times on that subreddit I do not agree with what they're saying. I think they're over-exaggerating. I think they're being overly sensitive about stuff, and I think some of the stuff they take out of context. That's not everything. I agree with some of the things they say, but a lot of the time I do feel like they're kind of not purposefully taking things out of context, but missing the context. And yeah, that kind of sucks. But you're a big creator and you're a controversial creator, and that's gonna happen. Like, it's not nice, but you don't need to assume it's a harassment campaign. Like, it can be a horrible thing to experience. But is that harassment? No, it's just people having opinions on you that maybe you don't agree with. I mean, people have all sorts of nasty opinions about me too. I'm not gonna go suing people. I mean, I can't afford to sue anybody. Even if I could, I wouldn't be going to suing people. I mean, I can give you even an example from the other day. So I made the video clarifying that the Illuminati drama stuff, I hate to call it drama, but you know what I mean, like the lawsuit, it's not still ongoing because Mad Catster posted a video about it. People thought there were new lawsuit allegations being made, new claims being made, and people thought the lawsuit was on again. And I made a video to clarify, no, these aren't new. This is old documents. It is still settled, still over. And even though I tried to do that in the best way I could, and I did make the thumbnail and the title something like, I don't know, there's more question mark, and I did that so that people who had heard that there was more stuff would, you know, click on it and find out, no, there isn't. Chill, please respect people's privacy. The response I got from some people was still, oh my god, I hate Vangelina, this was so gross for her to do, blah 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 blah, even though I was just clarifying. So, like, I don't agree with that opinion of me. sometimes people give criticism and I'll take it, but I don't agree with that opinion of me. There's a lot of other opinions that I've seen about me that I'm just like, what are you talking about? But you move on. And I know he's dealing with a lot more hate than I would get, obviously, because like I am irrelevant. So it's harder to deal with, but you need to move on from that unless there actually is some level of genuine harassment going on here. And if it's just people making posts about you on Reddit, I don't know that that is something that qualifies legal action and publicly making their information available. One more thing I want to say about this, right, is that it says, I can't wait for your family, friends, work, and school to know what you're up to. School. Which to me, in my opinion, implies that some of these people that he's threatening to release public information on, whether it is doxing or not, are kids who are in school. Children. You're fighting with children now, Ethan. That's like, are you trying to get them bullied? Like, is that the idea? Are you trying to get them bullied to ruin their prospects of like potentially getting into college if that's what they want to do? For people who are in work, you want them to get fired? You want people with real jobs to get fired because they made a mean post about you on Reddit? Like, is that what I'm understanding here? And if there is something severely horrible going on behind the scenes, maybe you should come out and say that, because otherwise it's just making it sound like you are trying to ruin people's lives in real life because they made mean posts about you on Reddit. And that feels like what you're doing is a severe overreaction to what they're doing, even if what they're doing is shitty. Now, 14 hours ago, H3 Podcast was live saying, I can't handle this anymore. And then in the thumbnail you see /YouTube drama, H3 Snark. There was an attack. I have no idea what that subreddit is. H3 Productions, from moi, LA Influencer Snark, another one which I have never visited. So let's take a quick look at that.
Huh? I said I don't even know if I feel like doing this one. It's so depressing.
Okay, well,
yeah. It's in the title. Excuse me.
We could reuse it for Wednesday and
here's what's happening.
Stuff.
It's just, you guys have all noticed who are on the subreddit or just on the internet in general, like, I saw this morning. It's a post. There's this video of Jerry Seinfeld going around. I don't know. Actually, I'd like to show it for context. It's a video of some activist going up to Jerry.
I think it was at that SNL.
Yeah, I've seen this one.
I think he was at that SNL thing last night.
And they said, free Palestine. Because he's pretty pro-Israel. You can tell based on his social media, and his wife is definitely active as well.
Oh, I think we got the video.
Subtext front. Yeah, here it is. Let's take a look.
Can I get a selfie? Free Palestine! I don't care about Palestine. That's sad.
Look, it's Jerry Seinfeld, you know what I mean? I doubt he's that callous about it.
I mean,
he seems to be
pretty callous about it.
I think he's more like,
it was a very.
Okay, I hope we're gonna get to what this has to do with Ethan and Reddit and him on Reddit, because so far this seems like unrelated. I'm sure they'll get to it. But I will say I've seen this clip of Jerry Seinfeld, and all I'm gonna say was that he dated a high school student when he was 39. So fuck that guy.
I think he's like, what? He's just responding to a troll. That was my take.
I mean, it though.
I mean, obviously,
he is definitely pro-Israel.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Unquestionably.
I mean, obviously, I don't like that he said that, but like, I fucking hate when people do this shit. Like, just put up the camera and like try to force someone to endorse whatever it is on the spot. Like, I feel like that was.
I mean, if he really didn't want to say it, he would just walk away.
Right. The guy knew what he was doing.
Yeah,
trolling him.
Right.
And I'm sure Jerry gets this like all the time everywhere he goes. Right. So. I don't know how callous he actually is. Obviously, I wouldn't say that, right?
Does Ethan just play?
It happened to me when I got charged up on the guy on the day of drive.
You handled it much better than Jerry.
I like Palestine. Free Palestine. I agree. You know what I mean? I'll tweet tomorrow. But obviously, Jerry's scary.
I mean, he's a known asshole, right?
I mean,
he's definitely an asshole.
He's an asshole. Yeah.
I think that's just like
So
part
we
of
all
his
agree.
character. Yeah. Although I do think it's kind of funny how the guy is like, he's very soft about it. He's like, free Palestine?
Maybe? Come on.
Free Palestine! I don't care about Palestine.
Yikes.
Jesus.
I feel like that was Jerry Seinfeld. I felt like that was Seinfeld from Seinfeld.
It did feel like that.
He's like, I don't know about that. Anyway, obviously I disagree, right? Free Palestine, whatever. The point is, not whatever, free Palestine, let's go.
Free Palestine, whatever. Dude, fuck off.
Sorry, he so quickly went, Oh shit, they're gonna clip that with the whatever and they're gonna focus on the whatever.
Well, they
Point
should
is, this was
because
posted
he's
on
a
the subreddit.
careless cunt.
Faux moi. Did I say it right?
Faux moi.
For moi.
Faux moi.
Which means
right.
Not I, maybe? No. Let me look it up.
Faux is like fake.
Moi. It's me.
Wasn't it?
Nathan, I'm a phony.
play on that?
I'm a phony.
Isn't it a play on the famous Instagram account?
It's a
with all
play
the-
on du moi, which
Right.
means
Fucks moi.
to me.
Well, anyway, you guys probably know about faux moi. It's a gossip. It's a big gossip. Instagram
Fairly
page.
certain it's supposed to
I don't
be
know if it's
FOMO.
more serious than that. But I know about the Instagram page, and they have a large following on Reddit.
Very large.
And they've become one of these like snark. I think the mods in this are the same ones as snark. There's like this insane crossover, and it's just turned into like a H3 snark subreddit to the point where it's like all their top posts seem to be about like anything about me, and then like old stuff about me.
You're dead.
It's in the top 1% of Reddit, 4.4 million members.
Oh wow. Wow.
It's like
Are we getting to how the Jerry Seinfeld post? We are going to get to why this is related, right? Please.
one of the biggest. Yeah, it's close.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that big. So here in the comments of this clip of
Here we
Jerry saying, "I don't care about Palestine." No wonder Ethan and Hila love him so much. They have a lot in common. I mean, the only thing I have in common with Jerry, as far as I can tell, is that we're both Jewish.
Right.
In terms of our politics, anyway.
Sure.
I mean, I think we probably both agree that Israel shouldn't be annihilated, but I don't think that's uncommon belief. I mean, they're really fucking
Unwatchable.
unfunny too.
I can't.
Hold the.
Everything that comes out Ethan Klein's mouth is fucking dog shit. It's unlistenable. He is horrible and lacks all self-awareness. Lives in a fantasy world.
Audio effect tracks in Ableton Live open up some really amazing possibilities, particularly when it comes to things like sound design. And in this video, I want to explore just one of these possibilities by showing you how you can use an audio effect rack to create a really cool feedback system, particularly useful for sound design. Let's dive right in. Okay, so in this first part of the video, I'm going to show you how to set up this audio effect rack with feedback for yourself. Fair warning, it's quite detailed, it's quite nerdy, so if you'd rather just skip to see the application of this, you can download my free feedback rack in the description below, then jump to the timestamp in the video to see exactly some of the ways that you can use it. Otherwise, if you'd like to build it for yourself, follow along in this part of the video. Okay, so to set this up for ourselves, all we're going to need to do is start with a compressor, and then on this compressor, I'm going to group this to an audio effect rack by pressing Command or Control and G, and this is going to be our feedback in signal. So I'm going to open up this audio effect rack a little bit further by opening up the chain list here, and then just renaming this to FB in. Next, I'm going to create another chain by right-clicking and clicking Create Chain. And this chain is going to be our through signal, our dry signal. So I'm going to rename this to through, and this first chain, we're going to name this to FB in. So this is our fed back signal. Next, I'm going to duplicate this rack by selecting it and pressing Command or Control and D, renaming this rack to FB out. And then this one's going to be slightly different. We're going to have 3 different chains here. We're going to have this first one, which is going to be our FB out. We're going to have this second one, which is our wet. And we're going to have this third one here, which is our dry signal. We're also going to delete the compressor from this FB out signal right here. And then what we're going to do is go ahead and group these 2 audio effect racks together by selecting the last one, selecting the first one, and then pressing Command or Control and G. And so what we're trying to do here is have a signal that goes through this first audio effect rack, then goes through some sort of processing in between this fed FB in rack and this FB out rack, which we'll put in the middle. And then we want this FB out rack to send its signal back into the FB in signal to then get reprocessed by the processing that is in between these 2 racks here. And luckily, using audio effects racks makes this really easy, and this is why we have the compressor here. I'm going to go ahead and open up the sidechain input section of this compressor, and then click on the sidechain toggle so that we're receiving a sidechain input. Then I'm going to select the audio from drop-down menu to be the track that this compressor or this rack is on. Next, if we go to the second drop-down menu, you can see I get a bunch of options here. And what these options are allowing us to do are tap into the signal at any point in this audio effects chain in any of these different audio effect racks. So if I didn't have any of these racked up, we wouldn't be able to do this. But because I do, I can actually select, say, the FB out rack right down the bottom, and I can select this FB out post effects right here. And so now we have the signal going through the FB in to the FB out, and then this FB out is being fed back in to this FB in here. But in order for this compressor to actually output the signal that it's listening to, I just need to engage this little headphone icon right here. Now, at this point, don't send any audio through because you're gonna get a crazy amount of fed back signal, which we need to be able to control somehow. In order to do that, I'm gonna use a utility in this audio effects section here. So I'm going to search for utility, click and drag and drop this into the FB out chain. Then what I'm going to do is map this gain to the first macro control of this FB out rack by right clicking on map to macro 1. And then I'm going to go to the map options, leave the minimum at -infinity and set the maximum to 6. And this is going to allow us to control the level of the signal being fed back into the start of the chain here, because this compressor is receiving the signal post the effects in this FB out chain. I warned you this was going to get a little bit nerdy. Next, let's exit this mapping section, and I'm going to mute this FB out chain right here. And now we have our basic feedback setup, but what we need to be able to do from here is also be able to hear the dry signal. So that's where we're going to come down to this dry chain, and we're going to put another compressor in this dry chain here. And this compressor is going to read the signal before any of this feedback happens. So in the same way that I did with this compressor here in the FB in rack, I'm going to go to this compressor here in this FB out rack on the dry chain, open up the sidechain section, enable the sidechain input, audio from the exact same track that we're on here, and select this as the audio effect rack in its entirety, pre-effects. Next, of course, I need to be able to listen to the signal, so I'm just going to click on this little headphone icon right here. And now, so that we can control the balance of the wet or the fed back signal versus the dry signal, I'm going to go ahead and map this wet chain volume here to macro 2 and this dry chain volume to macro 3. And let's just hide all but 4 macros so we get access to these. Rename this first one wet and this second one dry. Now, to stop things from going overboard, this last step is really, really important. Again, before we run any audio through this, I'm going to go ahead and put a limiter just after this FB out rack here, set the release to auto, set the ceiling to 0, and now we're stopping this signal from ever exceeding this peak value of 0 dB, which is really useful when we're working with feedback. It allows us to keep a nice, safe level. With this limiter, as I can, I'm also going to unlink the left and the right channels, just so we have a more transparent limiting going on here. Last, let's pretty things up a little bit. I'm going to close this limiter. I'm going to close up this feedback out chain. I'm going to close up this feedback in chain. And then I'm going to go ahead and put an audio effect rack in between this FB in and this FB out. And this audio effect rack is where we're going to put all of the effects that we're actually going to use to process the fed back signal. Just so that we can get those controls back, I'm actually going to unfold this FB out rack here and just hide the chain list so that we get access to those macros that we set up before, this being the feedback level. And I'm going to pull this all the way down to -infinity. So to test that this works, I'm going to go ahead and add a delay into this middle audio effect rack. I'm going to set the dry wet all the way to 100% and pull the feedback down to 0. So here on this audio effect track, I've just put a single snare hit. And so you'll hear immediately that if I play this snare hit, we're going to get 2 iterations of the snare hit. We're going to get the dry signal, and then we're going to hear the delayed version of the signal. So now to test that the feedback works, I'm going to increase this feedback level. And what we should hear is a typical delay effect where we have a trailing out in level of the delayed signal. We can increase the feedback level to get a longer delay tail. And it's working like a typical delay. Now you might be thinking that is a lot of setup for just a delay like this. Let me show you why this is so damn cool. Before I do though, if you'd like to learn more from me outside of these free YouTube videos, I'd love to invite you to check out my monthly membership offerings where you can get access to things like monthly exclusive video tutorials, live sessions, and even one-on-one sessions with me. If membership's not right for you, I also offer a selection of self-paced online courses. For example, I just released a bass sound design for electronic music fundamentals online course. Or if you're really not up for spending money, but you want to stay up to date with what I do and some of my offerings, I have a simple monthly newsletter that you can sign up to with the link below, and a Discord where I'm actually running monthly online challenges as well. You can find links for all of those things in the description below. So instead of using this rack that I've set up here, I'm actually going to turn this off and collapse it by double clicking, and we're going to use the free MTM feedback rack that you can download with the link in the description. And if we take a look at this, you can see it's basically the exact same thing that we'd set up previously, except for all the macro controls are just in the front of the rack instead of in the middle. And we also have a control for the limiter gain going into the limiter as our last macro control here. So So let's go ahead and add the delay once again to the effects section, pull the dry wet all the way up to 100 and the feedback all the way down to 0. And you'll hear once again that if I increase the feedback, we get that kind of delayed signal. So now let's insert something else into the feedback loop. A really classic and really audible example is something like a pitch shifter. So I'm going to use Ableton Live's shifter device, and I can place it either before or after the delay. Let's go ahead and place it before the delay in this instance and switch it to pitch mode. Next, I'm going to set the coarse to 1 semitone. And as I increase the feedback, take a listen to what happens now to the delayed signal. Every single time the delayed signal is fed back into itself, we're going to increase the pitch of it by 1 semitone. So now we get this rising pitch effect in the delay instead of just a typical delay. I could go down 1 semitone. And if I increase the feedback high enough, say to 0 dB, we can get basically an infinitely delaying signal with this changing in pitch.
Alpha secure.
And then if I change one of the parameters in the shifter, now, as you would have noticed there, I was playing consistently with this feedback control level because if it went too high, we would get a really, really loud and distorted signal, which is exactly why I have the limiter at the end, and that's exactly why you need the limiter there as well. So now that we understand how this works, let's go ahead and have some fun and play around with some cool effects inside of this feedback loop. Most of the time, we want to start with something like a delay or reverb, so we can leave this delay here. I'm going to set this to a time base instead of a synth base. We can leave this shifter set to pitch mode, so we have this increase of a single semitone each time. I'm going to go ahead and add a reverb as well after this delay. I'm going to maybe set this to a little bit less than 50% and increase the decay quite a bit too. Let's go ahead and maybe add some chorus to give it a little bit more width just after the delay, decrease the amount slightly, increase the warmth, and let's run this drum break through instead of this single snare sound so that we get a sense of what it sounds like.
Enemy shooter. Watch it. They're taking C. Bravo is on.
That's pretty chaotic. Let's go ahead and adjust like the delay time.
Charlie. Securing zone A.
Add some filtering, maybe with an EQ, remove the low frequencies. Let's try something else, maybe like a vocal sample.
Capturing this objective. Incoming lethal. Watch it.
Let's go ahead and change this delay so that it's back on sync. Maybe set it to quarter notes or something instead. Increase the decay on this reverb, maybe the dry wet too. Change the filter.
Bravo. Securing C.
Maybe let's go ahead and add like a beat repeat or something just before the shifter so that we get some kind of random glitchiness going on too by just increasing the variation and reducing the chance and playing around with some of the parameters in this effect.
Hostile UAV established.
And last but not least, let's go ahead and add like a grain delay in here as well. Maybe after this delay, we get the really kind of grainy effect. Duplicate the shifter. A whole wide world of sound design possibilities. So there you have it. That's a cool way that you can use audio effect racks to create a really interesting, intricate feedback system inside of Ableton Live. If you'd like to grab my free NTN feedback rack, you can find a link in the description. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed. Stay awesome, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Capturing this objective.
B locked down. Zone A secure.
Tactical incoming.
Losing B. Losing Bravo.
Ableton Live has a whole bunch of really cool MIDI effect devices that allow you to manipulate MIDI notes in various ways to achieve some really cool results. However, one that shines above them all, in my opinion, is the humble arpeggiator device. And in this video, I want to go through absolutely everything there is to know about the arpeggiator MIDI effect device in Ableton Live so that you can know how to use it to its full potential. Now, this will be quite a dense video, so if there is something specific you're after, make sure to check the timestamps and the description so that you can jump ahead to learn exactly what it is you're after, and save this video for later so that you can come back to it and continue to learn and use it as a little bit of a reference point. Let's dive in. Okay, so first up, what actually is the arpeggiating device and what does it do? Well, Ableton's arpeggiating device is a MIDI effect that takes in a set of incoming MIDI notes and then plays them back in some kind of sequential or rhythmic order. The most classic example of this is sequencing the individual notes of a chord. So here I have a simple grand piano. And we can play a C major chord, for instance. Then if I open up this arpeggiator device and turn it on, this is the default arpeggiator. Take a listen to what happens. So with the default arpeggiator device, when we feed this a chord, say a 3-note chord like a triad, it will then sequence the individual notes of this chord in an ascending fashion. And the rate of this sequence is going to be determined by the rate control. Currently this is set to 8th notes, but I can have it set to, say, 16th notes. Or I can have it set to a slower rate, like 1/4 note.
Losing A.
Then the length of each of the individual notes is determined by the gate control here. So at a value of, say, 1%, each of the notes are going to be really, really, really short. In fact, 1% of the value of the rate, to be precise. And as I increase this gate control, we can go up to 200%, which is twice the length of the note determined by the rate control. So now that we understand the absolute basics of this device, let's take a look at what we can do with it in a lot more depth. First up, let's take a look at the style section, which allows us to adjust how these notes are sequenced and in which order they're sequenced in. So we can find the style section here, which is the main section in the arpeggiator device, and we can see this drop-down menu that currently says up next to style. We have 18 different styles that we can choose from here. And each of these sequence the incoming notes in a different way. We can choose a style from this drop-down menu. Say I could choose down, or we could cycle through these different styles using the left and right arrows in the display below. And this display is actually quite useful because it also gives us a visual representation of exactly how this particular style is sequencing the incoming notes. So the up style sequences the notes in an ascending fashion from bottom to top and then repeats this sequence. Down does exactly the opposite, starting from the higher note and sequencing down to the lower note. Up, down combines these two, starts at the lowest note, goes up, plays the top note once, and then goes all the way down, plays the bottom note once, and then goes back up again. And then down, up does exactly the opposite, starting at the top, going down, and then going back up. Next, we have up and down, and then down and up. And these two basically work exactly the same as up, down, and down, up. However, they repeat the bottom and the top notes of the sequence. So here we have up and down. And then we have down and up. And you'll hear that the top and bottom notes of the sequence are repeated. Next up, up, we have converge and diverge. Let's take a look at what converge does first. So converge will sequence the notes in a converging pattern. What this means effectively is that it will play the lowest note, then the highest note, then the second lowest note, then the second highest note, then the third lowest note, then the third highest note, and then once it's gone through all of those different notes, it will repeat that pattern again. It's not super easy to hear this with a 3-note chord, so instead let's play a 4-note chord so that we can hear the effect of this.
We've taken control.
And then diverge does the opposite. It starts on the inside notes and then goes outward. And then, as you've probably guessed, converge and diverge together combines these two, starting from the outside notes working inwards and then the inside notes working outwards.
Crush those dirtbags.
Again, this little graphical display in the center is really good for helping understand exactly what these different styles are doing. Next, we have some slightly interesting ones. We have the pinky up, down, thumb up, and thumb up down. And what these do are repeat either the highest note or the lowest note, whilst also sequencing the notes in either an ascending fashion or an ascending then descending fashion. For instance, let's take a look at pinky up, where we can see that it begins at the lowest note, plays the highest note, then plays the second lowest note, plays the highest note, plays the third lowest note, plays the highest note, etc. So the up style sequences the notes in an ascending fashion from bottom to top and then repeats this sequence.
I have been an Ableton Live user for basically my whole music making life, but now I'm seeing there's like native instruments plugins on the MPC and actual arrangement timeline mode. Is it time to switch to MPC? Is MPC taking the throne as the king of standalone? There's lots to talk about. Here's the beat, then let's talk.